And we are back with Richard Collins. This is the Cougar Land podcast. And obviously, Rich, you're still in Cougar Land, basically. You're keeping it down. You're over in Italy. And were you telling me earlier you're in Verona, right? In that area?
I'm in Verona. That's correct.
So why Verona instead of Vicenza? I mean, Verona, I was going to take a trip back there with my wife recently. And I go, Verona, it looked easier to digest or look like more options than what Vicenza had for like Airbnbs and stuff, and the landscape looked cool. I never spent a lot of time there, even though I grew up there, near there. Why Verona? Is that where your family's from or friends or?
Yeah, my mother's from Verona. My father was stationed at an American military base here in the late 50s, which was Passalacqua. Then JFK shut it down in 62. And but in the meantime, my father met my mom, and I'm the result of that great connection.
So what years did you attend VHS? What years did you go from the beginning?
I did all 4 years of high school from 77 to 81.
Oh, wow. So were you there during was Hurling and Gregan there during your era? Mark Hurling?
Yeah, Hurling was 1 year behind. Steve was in my class. Actually, Steve and I ended up being roommates in college for a couple of months. Of course, the people I was tightest with were Dan Frigo and I are still best friends today. Dan and I have lived parallel lives. We ran into each other in San Francisco when he was working for Christian Dior and I was working for Procter & Gamble. Then we met up in New York. Then we met up in LA. He was doing his master's. I was doing my doctorate at UCLA. And then it just seemed like every 2 years we ran into each other and lived in the same city. And today we see each other regularly. He lives in Milan. Of course, he's president of Disney Italy. I have a couple of companies here in Italy, and then I have a company in Miami, and I go back and forth. So Dan and I have, willing or not, we've been brothers since high school.
That's the coolest thing. I stayed friends with my best bud, Mark Parkins, throughout the years. But it's funny how, I ran into you, I was talking to you about this earlier, I ran into you and your sister in San Francisco. I was in the Navy. My ship was down at Pier 38 getting refurbished. And I was over in Little Italy because I could go there. I was only 19, but I could speak Italian, so they wouldn't card me for beer. And drinking age was 21. I run into you guys, and you look like you were off to do something big. And, you guys were all fired up being in California. And I was wondering, wow, well, here's a Vicenza Cougar. I wonder how many are here. And I did not run into a one since then. I mean, later years, many, many years later, yeah. But I go, well, if they're here, there must be more Cougars around here. But as time goes on, right. I ran into a friend that was in the Air Force, that Kevin Merritt. He was stationed at Fairfield, which is, east towards Sacramento. But I go, I wonder, I'd be at nightclubs. I go, I wonder if there's any Vicenza people in here. And then years later, I figured it out that we were probably at the same nightclub and might even have walked by each other because we weren't looking for other Cougars. You know what I mean? but it's.
I guess that's you that term loosely, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. There was other Cougars in the club, but they weren't Vicenza Cougars. so I guess that's how that worked.
You've got a contagious laugh, my friend. I mean, you have a laugh that I think you could make people on the Mord crowd laugh. Yeah,
I don't know where it comes from, man. I don't sit around. People must think I'm like a big chucklehead all day, sitting around the house going off, but. I always wondered what happened to you guys because I see you there and then you're gone. And this was like the pre-Facebook, the pre-social media days. Being a military brat, growing up there, my dad moved us to Germany and then the weather was warm. We took off to Italy when I was 5. And I was always going, my friends would come and go every 2 or 3 years. It's like, hey, we're going to give you some new friends. Let's see how you interact with these kids. It was like you're on this sitcom and there was new actors and then the storyline was going to change. And it usually did. But,
right.
You know what I'm saying? You're like, hey, we're pretty nice kids. All of a sudden this kid's like, hey, man, let's get in some trouble. Yeah, we get a kid from Texas. He's going to teach us how to ride our bikes backwards or something and drink beer standing on our heads, right? which is par for the course. But you were there. My dad was coaching. I don't know if did you play sports with my dad at all, or was he your PE teacher? You guys interact?
Well, I played football for Djokovic. Of course, my sport was soccer, so I was with Coach Ritchie for 4 years. I played basketball my senior year because in the wintertime between football and soccer, I usually play soccer for an Italian team in Verona. But, it was my senior year, and I was spending all my time with Jim Cavoli, Monty Stokes, Dan Frigo, And so I remember when I couldn't play basketball, but I was 6'1", and I met your dad just said, yeah, I can play basketball for me. I mean, I rode the bench most of the season, of course, but it was just fun to hang out with the basketball players and pretend like I knew what I was doing. And so that was the only experience I had him as a coach, my senior year basketball.
That's interesting. It's like you don't, you're the soccer player. Like come over to my side. Let me show you. Let's see how good you basketball players can play soccer. You don't want none of this. The Italians were heads and tails above American teams.
Well, I actually during practice I remember teaching Mark Curling, if you guys this, I could actually make the shots easier if I hit him with my head than shoot it with my hands. So I was trying to start
you're taking the soccer technology. Bop. Okay, there we go. But so exactly. I mean, I see you guys there. We disappear, and then you keep friends with your friends. I've run into my friends, throughout the years. And coming back here, were you running into a lot of Vicenza Cougars in the States when you first got here, or?
Well, I'm not, I didn't do a good job of staying in touch a lot. I sort of, like to live where I am. I'm not a huge Facebook guy because I get the connection, but there's obviously something that's always left unsaid or incomplete in that world for me. Dan Frigo and I, of course, we basically ended up living together for the last 40 years in one way or another. Monty Stokes, I've gotten in touch with in the last few years. He was in Florida. I have a place in Miami where I spend the winters, and I used to go up and see him. Now he's moved to Alabama. I saw him actually just 2 weeks before I got down to Italy. Before the lockdown happened here, I was up in Alabama seeing him, and he's retired now. My sister does a much better job, Charlene. I think you know her. Or
yeah.
Better. She's done a better job in keeping in touch with her friends. I know she's still in touch with Debbie Katz and Linda Katz and a few other people. But beyond Dan Frigo and Monty, I really don't know. Jim Cavoli came to Verona a couple of years ago. We had lunch. I'm in touch with him on occasion. But no, I have not done a great job at keeping the family alive. And what motivated me to reach out to you, honestly, was, Saturday morning, I have a place at the lake. And it was storming, so I couldn't go out sailing. And I'm flipping now through and I see the message from Messenger, and I see this, this Cougar post you have going on with Derek Gould. And I said, I'll watch it 5 minutes just to see what's going on. I watched it for the entire time, and then I rewatched it in the afternoon. One, because of your wit. I mean, you're an easy guy to follow and an entertaining guy to follow. Derek, I knew a little bit better because we had played, we hung out in high school a little bit, even though he was younger. And I just got into it. And something about what Derek said, he said, I forget if he wrote it to me, if you said it in your podcast, but he said that one afternoon he started looking through photographs, and pretty soon he's opening boxes and opening drawers and looking for other photographs and mementos from Vicenza. And I said, what the hell? Let me go. And I have a few boxes here back from high school. And it just opened up this whole voyage of nostalgia. And so I said, let me reach out to these guys. And, I'd like to get in touch with some people, and certainly it seems like you do it in a fun way. And so here we are a couple of days later. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, right? I mean, I thought of Derek. I said, I need a ringer, man. I mean, it would have been him or Teddy, because they were Teddy was the ambassador forever with his website. I mean, there was not a lot of websites, they were just compiling Google and stuff, search engine stuff was so random to find anything on the internet back in the day. So Teddy had a website, a VHS website, and he kept a lot of people connected. And I would fluctuate back and forth depending where I was in my life, in my young, youthful ego in business or marriage or wherever I'd been at that point, like, oh, I don't need that. That's over. But then I'd come back to it. And then I'd run into, American people. You're living in the past. I'm like, no, I was living before now, in a way that you would not understand. And now that we're so technologically bombasted with, this phone thing, right? We were living in, and I love using the term actual reality. So when you go to Italy, you go to Europe, and when you're a kid, you're an American kid.
As opposed to virtual.
As opposed to virtual, right? You have this thing where, like, I want to go back to it. I want to go back. I want to go to the States. I want to go faster, because Italy, which you love that, today, any one of us would be like, oh yeah, let's just sit in the countryside and hear the crickets and really taste this wine and really try the local farmer's cheese and, the different cold cuts or whatever, pasta dishes on the table. And, the La Dolce Vita, the sweet life, the just the basics. And we're like looking at these Italians like, man, life's passing by you, dude. But what they were doing is they were in the moment. And as an American, you were faster paced. You're like, yeah, man, I got to get a skateboard, get a jump ramp. Man, I got to go see AC/DC and Kiss in concert. Yeah, I got to go hang out with Saturday Night Fever. I got to go to a disco, man. Like we were always pushing the pace. And the Italian kids, they were just chilling. Now we like some of what they had, and we can appreciate it in time. You know, it's bizarre. Looking at that aspect.
Well, I think in my experience, I think last year my life was exactly split between the U.S. and Italy in terms of years lived. And, I love the dynamics of the United States, the ambition. You get shut down, you get back up. Italians aren't so good at handling that. But then there's also that other side, which is, like you said, being in the now. The this is now moment seems to be a little more rewarding here. There seems to be something. And as we get older, I think we look for that a little more rather than this super freeway where we're just constantly thinking of the next stop. So I'm lucky enough to have both of them. If I had to make a choice, I don't know, that there is a wisdom to the Italian way of life. I live here. Of course, I spend about 4 or 5 months in the States because I'm back in Miami for work quite a bit. But in terms of what gives me pleasure today, I would say it's the mushroom hunting with my friends, or going fishing, or going sailing. And there's not this need to constantly have a plan for the next weekend, we're going to fly somewhere and God knows what. But I like it because I also have the other option, which is the American sort of, let's go conquer stuff and get stuff done.
So that is the Miami way. Miami's like that. I live in California. If you want to go back musically, talk about the Eagles, Life in the Fast Lane. The Eagles spoke wisdom. I mean, if you wanted a good tour guide and you were smart, and I wasn't really listening to it on the level, I go, that's just someone else's experience. But if you listen to a lot of the Eagles music, it was based about life in Los Angeles, movie stars breaking up, infidelity, opportunities come and gone. This guy thought he had it figured out, but no, he didn't, because he didn't look over here. I mean, if you break down the music, they were like, there's going to be a heartache tonight, Life in the Fast Lane, all that music. And that was music of your era too. The Eagles were big.
Oh yeah. I mean, my it was Jackson Brown, of course, which is a spin-off from the Eagles, as you know. Jackson Brown has that great song called "The Pretender," which is all about pretending you're living that life, but in the end of the day, there's other things that have to come into play here. I remember Dan Frigo and I, because I used to live with Dan Frigo on the weekends, because being from Verona, we had a game or whatever, I'd stay at his house from Thursday to Sunday. It was funny, during football season, I stayed with Monty Stokes, and during soccer season, I stayed with Dan. I'm not sure how that happened. And then when we didn't have sports, they'd all come to Verona for the weekend. And then, I'd get in trouble with my dad because the house was trashed after the weekend. Dan and I would sit in the room for a weekend, just listen to Jackson Brown, from Hold On, Hold Out to, and I bring it up because a similar philosophy to how they saw life. These guys that they weren't happy with what was going on. They wanted to get on a boat and go around the world. And a lot of us are thinking about that today. But I have a company in Verona called Dual Diploma International, and it goes through a charter school system in Miami. And last year I attended one of these ceremonies of one of the high schools in Miami. And the president of this company, Academica, stood up and said, the one thing we all have in common, some of us remember university to college years, some of us remember maybe the junior high years, but one thing we all remember with intensity are the high school years. And you think about it, maybe it's the years that we're most apropos to learning, to being open-minded and so forth. But then I think about the components of VHS, these 300 American kids going to high school on a military base in the middle of the Veneto region, where you have Venice an hour away, and you have Verona, Milan, and Florence. You're in the middle of the Renaissance. And this dual experience, it makes for a very special recipe that I don't think kids in the States had. There are times I said, "God, to be a brat, to be a Dodds dependent, isn't easy, because you don't have a home. You're in a temporary phase." But when you look back at the math, you say, "Wow, you wouldn't change that experience for anybody that I know whose high school experience they say is great." I think of it with fondness, and in fact, this is part of my aging process. After I saw your iPod, I mean, let me get in touch with these guys. Let's maybe you guys have been doing it all the time, and I'm not in touch with it.
Well,
but,
no,
there was something magical about that exchange, and I thought, let me start participating in these things.
Well, it's new. It's new, and this is the business. You're in the teaching business. This is the way your business is going, which is virtual. And you and I talked earlier, and this is funny because we talked about my little joke with Derek, because I deal with these fighters and I, interview them. It's kind of my hobby, right? And they have pay-per-views. It's the UFC. It's one of the only sports going on in the world right now. So pay-per-views are like $79. Okay. And then I saw some article the other day that was like, Harvard is still going to charge full tuition, but you're going to pay for it, do it online. And I'm like, well, pay-per-view? Like you think you're that cool? It's like, I'm going to sell you the most exotic clothing, the newest Versace, but you can only wear it in your house. It's kind of it's not exactly so much for getting all the props and and the compliments and looking cool, down by the disco, whatever. I love disco because that makes me think of Italy. But think about it, actual, $75,000, but you were going there to a university like that to network. You were going there with kids of, that have parents in business. Your job opportunities might work. You're paying to go to
Shake
where
hands,
networking is,
for sure.
right?
I actually quoted that quote of yours. I was talking to Dan an hour ago because he was supposed to fly to take the train down to see me, but he's got to get back to London. And I said, yeah, Len Dempsey, did you know him? He says, well, no, he was a lot younger than we were. But I said, I just watched this iPod. He made this comment about, because his kid's going to Chicago next year, and most of his classes are online. And he's pissed off about this $70,000 a year to I don't care who the professor is, but nobody's worth that kind of money for pay-per-view, like you say. So I quoted your quote. He got a big kick out of it. And he asked me, he said, send me the link. I want to get involved with this too. So, I mean, maybe your next guest is Dan. He's another guy who can give you perspective.
Here's the format I'm trying to do right now. So I invited my brother to do his era because he's 3 years younger than me. I'm in the middle. You guys, I was watching you guys. I was riding the bus, at your age, the age difference, I was graduating in 86. My father's the coach, so I get to ride on the bus, like, hey, just be the little kid in the background. But I was still observing, taking it all in, like trying to figure out what's being a grown up all about and stuff like that, right? And
we were your role model.
Yeah. I was trying to build it. I
Good luck.
For the really groovy 70s, I didn't get the bell bottom pants. Never got into that. Never get the lamb chops, the mutton chops. Never worked into that. But I know that. Looking at this whole experience, pay-per-view, internet, school, you paid for the prestige. Who the hell is going to pay to go to this really expensive college now? And who's it going to matter to? So forth. Where are the recruiters going to come from? They're going to hit you up online, virtual recruiting thing. What I've noticed about, what I've noticed about, what I've noticed about colleges, because my wife went not too long ago, went to grad school, a few years ago, and there was not a lot of great recruiters. You work in schools and it's about helping people get to the next level, get to jobs. Maybe you can answer this to me. Her school was a state school, Cal State. It wasn't Berkeley, because Berkeley it was just like everyone's trying to get into this state school, even though it's not a private school. It was really the prestigious one. It's like the underlying is like all the tech companies will come here to recruit you. This one, you finish school and there's somebody from an insurance company, border patrol, and somewhere else, all these jobs that you didn't even need a degree for. Come work at Jamba Juice. You could be a manager, entry level. Like, what did I go to college for, dude? I mean? So that's something that needs to change too. Maybe this makes it equal because some of those schools they had all their cronies. Like I see private schools in San Francisco. If you went to one of them, they would be walking you right into Facebook, probably because they were subsidized or connected to faculty or staff or HR in these companies. And it's like, which college hustled the best? That's what I was noticing. You know anything about that? Of course, you help people with the growing high school and all that. What goes on at the next level?
Well, yeah, and we're talking. I'm part of this group called the CER Group in Washington D.C., which is the Center for Educational Reform. And we have webinars every week, and some academic entities are really pushing for digital all the way, 24 hours a day, permanent. Education is not about just the subject you're learning. Education is about the socialization. It's about sports team playing. So I don't know that it can go that way entirely. I don't know if that was your question. I mean, if you're asking me,
I know, and I was kind of threw it off there. Yeah, the digital there is a disconnect. Because there's different when you teach in person. Like if you watch comedy on TV or you're in the comedy room, you're going to laugh harder or you're not, or you're going to absorb differently. And, when we're going visually online, we are giving up the writing and the reading as much as we are absorbing off the internet. And with today's world, we are a little bit more ADD generation. So it's like, zzz, you know, you ever watch an episode and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, yeah,
It happened.
absolutely. Well, you know, the big experiment in the 60s was they realized in the classroom that kids only had an attention span of 10 to 12 minutes. And then when they analyzed it, it ended up being because that's where the commercials were, watching cartoons on Saturday morning or in the evenings. So kids' attention was 10, 12 minutes. Then the commercial came on. He'd go to the bathroom to get a snack, and he'd come back for the next part of the cartoon. And that became part of the learning process. So now teachers had to entertain students as opposed to teach them just to keep their attention. I think the digital age is making that. I noticed with my daughter, who's almost 12 years old, she didn't suffer at all with the lockdown because her, you know, this tool is her tool. I mean, she misses the face-to-face time with her friends, but in terms of them being alienated by this tool, you know, they're much more robotic. They're much more, they identify with this tool much more than I do. You're probably, you know, you're obviously much better at it than I am because you're doing this kind of stuff. And I see the plus side, but I was telling you before we went online, you know, everything I studied in college in the 80s is no longer applicable to me. I have 3 small companies. They all do well, but they do well today, not because of me, because I'm still the kind of guy that goes to dinner, shakes hands, you know, what's our strategy? And this today means nothing to the young entrepreneur, to the young businessman, even to the young investor. It's, you know, it really is a social media kind of approach. And, you know, in the Italian context, it's even more disturbing because being such a social society, you feel that in a bigger way. Americans are more technologically savvy. They're happy to be technological. I have friends that are happy to be online all day long. You know, after I get done with you, last thing I'm going to go outside and have a glass of wine at the local bar here and you know, and talk to somebody. Even if I don't like them, I'm gonna have a conversation with them. You know?
Yeah, you're going to talk to that guy that was working on his tractor just because you'd rather not be online. Tell me more. What kind of tire did you use? I'll never own a tractor, but damn it. Yeah, come on, boy. Give me some more of that information. But no, I get it, Rich. I love the social side, you know, and this whole thing's made it weird. I love the interaction. It's like a conversation's like a concert. It's a performance. In Italy, they said you have 99.9% actors or something. It was something I read in a tour book, like the most animated, interactive people, the most entertaining people. It's true. And, you know, it does take something away from the tactile, the touch, the feel, the communication, the experiential aspect of just looking at a television show. You know, what's changed in college and teaching now is, you know, when we were kids, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. We couldn't learn subjects years that we'd have to wait until we could learn that next subject, or if it was presented to us. And then somebody would know something you didn't know and I didn't know, but now our conversations coming together. But I think what's different.
You know, it's
good.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think the difference is that the generation now has much more information. In fact, they're informationally very rich. I'm just not sure that information can really stack up to knowledge or interpretation or doing a textual analysis, which is different than being able to find out how many times a verb is used in the text. These kids, they can go online and they can put together a paper in 10 minutes. But it's a different approach to actually read the text, have to analyze it, have to do textual analysis. So we're exchanging knowledge and know-how for the wealth of information we have. And I you know, and it's a model, it works, and obviously it's working. I'm just not sure that we're not paying too high a price for it.
Well, my thought's this. It's like the benefit for someone like you to use this model. You're a man who's lived a life. You've seen the world. You've been in pre and post, you know, internet times. You lived when your memory bank, your hard drive had to retain 30 phone numbers by memory. Now we can't even remember our wife's phone number on our cell phone because we're like, oh, the cell phone has it. So we start giving up that part of our hard drive. So now, you know,
I thought you were going to say my wife's name.
But it's okay. So podcasting, you have a wealth of life and experience and teaching, and you're good at teaching. Now, if we're doing a podcast, hypothetically, just to make this analysis, if I was only 20 years old, I couldn't talk like I'm talking right now because I haven't lived yet. So that's the funny thing, is like certain things play into professors and people and teachers, and you know what you do, and you're sharing your experience of Italy. You grew up there, you're from there, and then you also see the United States side. So you've got this dual life that very few people get to live. So you're able to present it in a very interesting way to people, and they're curious about that. It's not like just what Bob or Bill or Tony or Jenny or Sammy has. It's your version. And I think that's why people would want to sign up and do what you do, is because you actually have a wealth of life and observations. It's one thing to practice theory, but when you have application and you've failed forward fast and had your experiences, and now you can teach people from actual experience. You can't jump the gun on that. You can't jump in the time machine. It's like Good Will Hunting, which I think I quoted that with Lisa, when we were talking about it. Like, you can tell me about the Sistine Chapel, but you've never smelled the inside of it. You've never been there. You can talk to me about what you read in a book. So people that have the experience are really good at teaching and putting it across, because they remember how they absorbed it and how they learned it, and then they're able to give that to other people. So, that's why professors are usually older, and they spent more time experiencing and then bringing that back to their students. And I think that's going to help a lot. I mean, you're doing the high school diploma thing too, online. That's another thing that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me pay a compliment, because also before we connected, you synthesized. I brought up my dilemma of living in 2 continents, and you synthesized it in 30 seconds in a way that I bridged academia with business. But you just did it again. I've spent years on this campaign of, look, I'm just finishing this book just to make it a point. I'm not plugging the book, but it's Zucked, the guy that
I love it. I love the cover. Right.
Yeah. It's but you have a way of synthesizing information and taking out the positive aspect of it. And I realized I probably lost years. I've had people say, Richard, start a blog, do something. You got to take your experience. And I was a professional at the University of Verona for 21 years. I resigned last year because my work with my own companies is sort of taking all my day. And I would love to go into a lecture room. I was teaching what's called C2LM, which is for the graduate course in English, and I could lecture for 3 hours. But then they said, well, we're going to video tape a lesson for you in case you get sick. Just we have something on reserve. And 20 minutes into it, I just couldn't. Maybe it's just an egotistical thing. I need the people in front of me. I need to see them smile. Or get pissed off, or some kind of interaction.
Yeah, six senses. Yeah.
Pardon me?
The 6 senses: hearing, touching, feeling, smelling, being, energetic, transference. When you have like monotone, that's you got to find a way to bring that through the video, right? And the best way, like, are you noticing that with here is like, if I hit a trigger, you're like, it's like, I'm looking for that. That's the best way you can do it. And you can relate it with analogies, experiences, and give it to people.
Well, I don't know if it's you, but right now I don't have a sense that you're in San Francisco and I'm in Verona. I get a sense that we're actually sitting in a bar having a glass of wine.
Right.
Now, is it just a talent you have? In the lockdown in Italy, I was at home 70 days, and living off webinars and Zoom meetings and so forth. And I didn't, occasionally somebody says something that clicks and you get motivated. But in the end, I was sitting in my office and in my study at home. I'm like, I would have exchanged any one of those for sitting at a coffee shop or sitting in an office and having that. To me, there's so much that goes behind the communication that's just not verbal. It's everything else that's part of the game. And you have a knack for it. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I saw the podcast, I was thinking I got to hook up with Len, because what I'm doing and what he does is it's a natural connection. You're almost like. I got the engine, but you have the car and the tires, and
for sure.
Let's get this on the track and let's get it rolling,
For sure.
Or you're the engine, I'm the tire. I didn't mean that in any kind of.
Doesn't matter. I could be the blinker. It doesn't matter. My point is, I'm the glove compartment, man. But you want to know what it is, Rich? I'll give you, because I'm highly, highly analytical. I'm going to give you my breakdown. Vicenza, we are computers. That was our hard drive. We were being programmed. We were given good stuff. But we were given extra special programs that the average American kid that wasn't taking in, which was culture, a secondary culture and your American culture. So we get 2 cultures. We got to learn how to communicate, build rapport fast, because we always had new incoming friends. And so one thing I'll tell you, we're like hackers, like people solve situations, right? So we would go out in the Italian economy, and if something wasn't going our way, we'd figure a way out to make it work. So we learned how to deal with obstacles unbeknownst to us. We were just thinking, oh, an obstacle, da 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 da, boom. We start becoming little code breakers and communicators. And then, what gets to me, podcasting was invented many years ago. at the snack bar in Vicenza, because everybody would go out and party or go to the beach or have a game or have a school dance, or, you know, something happened in Villaggio. And then everyone would meet, whether they were, you know, drinking kids or regular kids or whatever, and just recount their weekend. Oh yeah, I was just in Wiesbaden. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy up there. They got new skateboards, whatever. Oh, we were in Aviano and you met the other kids, da 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 da, and, you know, and they just went to a Kiss concert. And so everybody's kind of recanting everything, you know, at the snack bar. And that was the podcast of the day.
So that's the origin of the podcast?
You know, kind of. I mean, that's where everybody was bringing in their data. We didn't have computers. We couldn't message each other. We didn't have, some of us had phones. I didn't get a phone for years. My dad really had no reason for one. And then some of my friends didn't have phones, and it was expensive, and you weren't calling the States. And I think Lisa brought this up, like she was watching people in the States, whether we were getting some of those VHS tapes. Yeah, call your friends on the party line. Hey, what's up, Bill? Hey, Sally. Like they're all on the same phone line. Like that was the internet back then. And, you know, endless time on the phone, you know, and we're like, oh my gosh, I want some of that. Like we wanted some of that American stuff. And, but, you know, Italy forced you to think, and your conversation was your game. It was your rap, and you endeared people, and you had to be able to entertain people. So whether you're part stand-up comic or part philosopher or part interesting story guy down by the river, by the campfire person, that's what you get. You get it because that's how you kept things entertaining, because you ran out of stuff. So you went around and learned everybody's stories, and then you'd ask them, so what was it like living in North Carolina? What was it like in Fort Bragg before you lived here? You know, and then you're like, oh, Vicenza is better. But I'm just saying, like, you would get that. So you get this rap, you go to the States, and you're like, boom, 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 hacking, like communicating, and things are working for you because you've seen diverse cultures. You've seen, you know, a little bit of something about a little bit of everything, because you've had kids from all 50 states in that school with you, and you can use it in business, you can use it in college, you can use it in dating or whatever you want. You've got this thing. But then you also learn this, that if you really whip out the cool Italian stuff, they're going to think you're full of shit, which is, you know, you know, this happened to me, right? I was recanting, you know, the Shindy Club in Marostica that used to be there, disco out there.
Yeah.
Right? So I went there with a bunch of GI, not a bunch of GIs, a bunch of my buddies from high school. And we were just like this 3-story villa, and there's all these beautiful people from Milan and stuff. And the gin and tonics glue in the dark, and they were glowing in the dark, and we're like, yeah, this is so groovy and whatever. And I'm telling that story to my sailor buddies when I'm 19, because they've been on Westpac. They thought they'd seen it all. They're used to getting kids that just came from, you know, I don't know, Michigan, Ohio, somewhere, that just lived in a small little town, and hanging out at the Circle K or 7-Eleven was it, you know, drinking some Boone's Farm. We were going all over. So I'm telling them the story, and they're like, you're full of shit, man. Nah, that's not true. You could never do that. I'm like, what? There's models from Milan. I'm using a fake British accent. We're drinking Sambuca. What do we care? He's like, you didn't do that. But, you know, but what's funny is, like, I'm the E1, the low man on the totem pole. We go to a foreign country, any foreign country, people would come, hey, Len, where do we go? I go, I've never been here. But they knew I had that skill. Like, I'm in Hong Kong. I don't know. I'll figure it out. And most countries I could go to and hear the word and repeat it, not Hong Kong. You know, if I went somewhere like, I don't know, Philippines, they go, whoa, to Macau Pakak Street, and I go, okay, I'll go down to Macau Pakak Street, whatever that is. But if I went to, I remember being in Hong Kong. I know it's a segue, but I go to Hong Kong. We're at this British bar. This one was British ruled, and I go, where's the clubs? Where's the nightlife? And he's like, I'm like, shit, I'm not going to remember that when I drink some more. I'm like, damn, I guess we're screwed. And I go one vowel off, and they'll probably drive me to some, you know, farm or something and drop me off. I have no idea. So this is what you get. But I always felt that Italy was special. I just didn't reflect on it the right way, like you and I are doing right now. You know, some of your friends from there, the high level of accomplishments, because I think it was the unique skills. Like, are you going to attribute this to English class you took in Italy, or the whole thing? It's like the whole insalata mista. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the formula you're proposing here, and it finds me full agreement, is that we're really good because of that bicultural, bilingual environment. I mean, imagine, Saturday morning you're playing a football game in the North 40, and the afternoon you're at Cougars bar drinking beer with the Italians. How different can it get in the same day? And we're probably just good at dealing with things that are unfamiliar, that are new, that they're not, packaged into a road that has specific pit stops, but you deal with the unexpected or with the new in a way that your mind is more flexible, and you interpret it, you move on. And obviously, I keep moving my hands because I got that from this part of the, I'm saying, if I get the word wrong, maybe the hand will, compensate for it. And you get the idea.
It's your autocorrect. It's your word editor.
Exactly.
But it's cool that you and Frigo have stayed friends all these years. And like, I do a podcast I haven't done in a while with my Navy buddies that I was on the same ship with. And there's a couple guys that get out of the Navy and here in California and stayed friends for the last 30 years. And I was like, kind of envious, not in a negative way, but like, damn, you guys are lucky. I was appreciative that they had that experience. And the rest of us just dispersed and get married, divorced, owned businesses, got broke, poor, up and down. If you stay in California, life in the fast lane is going to get your ass. I don't care, man. You might be safer in Kansas. It's just what it is. But, if you stay here, it's because you're addicted to the drama and you like to, battle the battle plan. I will say that, like, you guys being buddies your whole life, you never really meet another civilian friend that really ever replaces that type of friend. That's a special friend that stays with you for life.
It's some of it's coincidence because we ended up being in the same cities. But part of it's VHS, part of it is the Italian American mixture of the pot. I also think that there's a component there that because of that experience that we all went through, whether you're half Italian, half American, or just an American kid there for a 2-year, 3-year tour because your father's stationed there, your mother's stationed there. There's something about, think about it. We were on a military base, which is, the ultimate in rigor and discipline.
Yeah.
And so we had to get creative, in terms of how to break rules a little bit. Because, you got an MP driving down in front of the high school every 20 minutes. But then, you'd go off base, you'd say bye to the MP, and, maybe you're at the Village, maybe you're downtown, maybe, Verona was also an added gift because we were even further away from that. So we would mingle more with the Italian. But there's a component that when you get back to Verona, I still say, well, let me go find out what Jim Cavoli's doing or Paul Gennarelli here. It's almost like there's a club of a few that don't necessarily gel with the Italians, but we can gel enough to create a new identity, which makes us different from them, but also makes us different from the Americans back at home. And so you become this club, this hyperbolic kind of adolescence that, 40 years later, obviously made a lot of sense because we're all sitting here. I haven't seen one person from Vicenza High School saying, "Oh, what a shitty experience that was. What an awful time in my life." I I miss the States. Everybody always has something positive. Say, "Oh, I wish I could get back there. I wish I could do something, or I wish I could find a way to." Even Derek was saying the other day that he and his wife would love to buy a small apartment in Italy to come for the summertime. I think you yourself are thinking about doing something in Tenerife, Spain.
Yeah,
soon enough.
And I could visit Italy.
I kind of do that, with one of my companies, WTS. I bring in university programs. Now we also do with high school kids. But in the last 10 years, we've specialized with adults. And these adults, they've been to Italy once. They've done the Rome, Florence, Venice, Ice Cream, Sistine Chapel tour. They're done with that. Now they want to penetrate Italy a little bit more. They want to, let's go to an agriturismo farm stay, and let's see only products that they make on the territory. There's spices, vegetables, the chicken, whatever, but it's grown right there. They don't even have a fridge in the kitchen because they don't need it. Everything is fresh. When the Americans have that experience 1 or 2 days, they're like, I need more of this. I want to, because they're used to going to the supermarket and buying, truckloads of groceries and stocking freezers and fridges. And they see this lifestyle that still exists today. And Italy is one of the few countries that it still exists. And they want to come back for more. Now, we had a group here last fall, and 4 of the guys in the program, we had a golf package organized for them. They said, you know what? We golf in the States. Can you get us a guy, because we know it's mushroom season, porcino season. Can you get us a guy that's going to take us into the Alps, and we're going to go mushroom hunting? I said, yeah, I got to get you a guide, and you can only take what he tells you to take because half the mushrooms up there are poisonous.
Yeah.
Well, these guys came back with a truckload of porcini mushrooms. We ate porcini mushrooms for 3 days in every way you can imagine. Omelets, pasta on top of filet mignon every way. And some of the guys froze dry some of it, took it back to the States. I don't know how they got it through customs. I mean, it looks very legal when you look at it.
Yeah.
And I still get emails today saying best experience I've had in the last 10 years, or it's like an Italian that goes to Utah or, somewhere in the Rockies and goes hunting. Not that that's something I like to do, but to them, the idea of, going in the wilderness and doing something. And so I think it's about creating these bridges, that just take the best of what the Americans have, the best of the Italians have. And as high school students, we had that without paying $20,000 for a 3-week trip to Europe. And we didn't realize that
many of those, Rich. And it's also when you talk about, like, my wife would love mushroom hunting. She's Russian. She likes mushroom hunting. That's her thing. You get her number right there. I just realized that talking to you, I go, oh, wait, she does always want to go mushroom hunting because that was a part of their tradition. But what you're talking about, it's like if I'm telling you the States is so cool and you're an Italian kid and I take you and I fly you to the flatlands of Kansas and there's a Circle K and there's a Denny's and we're hanging out at Johnny's above ground pool and a couple friends come over, have a barbecue, and then you fly back to Italy. And that's your whole experience. You're like, man, it's not like the movies, because you were expecting Orange County, Southern California. You were expecting Miami. You were expecting the Manhattan nightlife scene. You were expecting Chicago. You were expecting the rock and roll because we're such a big country. Italy, you get the flavor. But a lot of Americans, like I talked to Raul Cantu, who worked at SCB, and I still think he's doing a little bit of work on post. He was in the Army, but he was also like my mentor for learning how to do video and stuff when I was a kid. I had coax, right? So he goes, oh man, it's horrible. Nobody leaves the base anymore. It's, his analogy, I don't want to put it out here, but it was like, he's like, it's not what it used to be. The North 40 is the North 3. And the culture, what we did in our era, your era, my era, we went off post, we explored. I lived in the Italian community. I lived in the economy, as they'd say, probably 6-7 miles. I didn't get to live in Villaggio. And, I would have had an American TV channel, perhaps, and I would have had closer access to the pool, which I used to later lifeguard at. And that was a funny thing, too. You develop differently based on where you're put. Like some things happen because of proximity. There's a lot of Americans that never went off post that lived like you and me, and we were having the life of Riley, but there was very few. In our era, we were dragging them off the base with us, taking them to an adventure, taking them to a party. Let me show you what's up. And then you're bringing the new kid and you're kind of excited to see what their reaction is to this new thing and how your Italian groovy stuff stacks up to whatever he was doing in, I don't know, Carolina, where he just came from. Right.
Right.
So that's the deal. I mean, it was very experiential.
Similar experience we have with I have this other program we run called Dual Diplomas. I was telling you, and every year we bring 54 Italian kids to a high school in Miami. You can imagine that. Now, what the Italians have in mind is prom, pep rallies, the things they don't have here in their schools. So for the month we put them in Miami, they go through literally a 1950s movie. You gotta go to a pep rally. You're going to your first dance. You're going to the classrooms with your buddy. And they love the experience. It's not about which school is academically better, which student performs better. It's about this icon that the Italian students have seen in their mind in all the movies, and now they get to live it for a month. And they come back and they're all smiles, and it's almost as if. That's and cool. Here's where I will give.
That's really cool.
So it's not about which system is better, but it's really about creating bridges where you say, let's do it. Let's do it all, and let's enjoy. And let's have the Italians and the Americans meet and talk, and the Italian's going to speak English in their way, and the American will try Italian. And then in that big hodgepodge of whatever we have, you meet each other. You're vulnerable, you're cocky, depending on what's happening, and that's the game of it. And that's and we had that again. We're going to go back to this, but people like you and I, but even people that lived in the Villaggio that were a little more experimental, that weren't on self lockdown, let's say. They would get out, and I remember seeing some of these kids coming to Vicenza, and they were, all American, Texas, Arkansas, and I don't want to make any names because I'm not picking on anybody necessarily, but within 1 year, man, the way they dressed changed. It wasn't a jersey every day. It might have been a nice Italian shirt, maybe pants that fit a little tighter than American pants. You could tell there was a little shift in that just gave them that little extra flavor.
They went and got some UFO clothing that was popular in your era. Benetton
Yeah.
was mine because I know the UFO because I was a little kid and everyone was going to buy it. I think Michelle Flaherty, it was near where she lived, her and Neil. The Flahertys kind of live near us. I've seen her recently, by the way. I think she was your age in your group, Michelle Flaherty.
She was, I think, 2 years older than I was. I knew Neil, of course. Besides, what happened there. Neil was a great kid, but Neil had a love for soccer, and I remember that. We every 10 minutes we go out and we kick the ball around in the street and where we can. And he was Michelle. I didn't know so well. I knew of her. She
was my babysitter. That was funny to go visit my babysitter at 52. Like, what's up, babysitter? How you doing? I mean, it's funny. I met her and her parents. Her parents were out from Vicenza, and they're just telling me what it's like there now. And if you're kind of semi-attached to the base, it's one thing. You're probably living base free and running into the people, Tohut or whoever, Frigos, people that are of that era. Generales. You run into the.
I got to give a heads up to. I got to give a heads up to Koa because he's done a very good job of trying to get me to go. He's the ambassador. He organizes things with whoever's happens to be in town, and I don't go much, but mainly because my schedule is what it is. But he's done a great job at keeping the Cougars on the same wavelength. He organized a pizza night or a week at the beach. I know he's very close to Jenny Pellerito. They do a lot. And like I said, up until now, I've sort of backed away from it. One, didn't have time. Two, this sort of I am where I am, and I don't want to be where I'm not.
Right.
But something happened. Something's happening now, and there's an interest to reconnect, and I want to applaud you for what you're doing here because it seems that these are the venues that are going to make it work.
Well, it is like for me, I'm trying to trigger the psychological because this is like, okay, I'm gonna make a drug reference. This is like LSD. When you hear certain words or phrases or triggers of Vicenza, it makes you almost hallucinate. Like you go back in your time machine in your head and you're there. You're wearing your leather jacket. You're buying that chocolate milkshake over at the snack bar on Post. What I mean? You're on that train to Venice with a bunch of liquor that you got some GI to buy for you at the Class 6 store. And, you and your friends are going to a soccer game or a concert, or you're at Nordest or at the Crazy Club or somewhere out there, right?
Right.
And like, what's so special about that? Well, we get to do grown-up things as kids that we look at our own kids like, you don't want to do that. That's only for mom and dad to do. It's like parents have always been that way. Like, well, I got a little things get away from me, but hey, we're gonna put you over here, and that place, everybody was kind of distracted. It was when I was there, it was disco era, and then it became, soul, funk, hip hop, and it was also the 70s rock going into heavy metal, the transitions of music. And music meant more to us back then. And it's funny, I don't know why I remember this, but Phil Collins was always playing in every damn Italian bar. I Can Feel It in the Air Tonight, like they'd be play that over. They'd only have like one or two American albums in their jukeboxes. The rest of it was probably Celentano or whoever, jamming. So you'd go to the bar and you'd keep playing that song over and over, put in 50 lira or whatever. So I remember that kind of stuff. But I did live.
Well,
Good.
I have a fun Phil Collins story. After my first year in college, I came back, as we all do. I was coming back because my parents were still living in Verona. And I met up with, a few of the people. And I had dated Jenny Diener in high school for a little while. And then we were friends again when I came back for the summer. And her and I, and about 7 GIs with girlfriends that I did not know, we hopped on a van and drove to Torino to see the Rolling Stones. But I remember the date. It was July 2nd, 1982. I remember the date because I'm a huge soccer fan. That night, Italy was playing Germany in the World Cup final. I said, I'm coming to Rolling Stones. It was an afternoon concert at the stadium of Juventus. I said, it was the Jay Giles band was opening up. The Rolling Stones were doing their thing. And then we were going to get back in the van. The game started at 8:30. I said, we got to be in a bar somewhere between Torino and Verona, so let's say Milan, to watch the game. And well, for some reason that didn't happen. What did happen is Mick Jagger came out on stage, and I'm sitting here, and obviously we've had our drinks and we're having a good time. And Mick Jagger comes out 5 hours before the game and says, "Italia 3, Germania 1." I don't know what power this guy has. I don't know how he's 80 something still rocking like a 20-year-old. But Italy won 3-1. But obviously, all the GIs I was with, nobody had an interest in the soccer game. They said, let's get back to Vicenza. They're mostly all hungover. And I ended up listening to Phil Collins over and over, coming in the air tonight, because I couldn't see the game. And I could only console myself with that song over and over in my Walkman.
The Walkman. Remember the Walkman? I mean, we're talking about, you could take one thing if you had, this is a funny segue. You're talking about the technology. You either had the huge boombox, the Super Scope, the Marantz, the Toshiba, the the JVC, or one of those big Sharps. That was your status. Like, we didn't have cars like kids do in the States when they're 16. Didn't roll up in our Corvette or our dad's car he was saving to make us look cool. And it was your boombox, man, and those guitar straps and the PX. That's where you went and grabbed those. But then when the Walkman came out, it's like, look, portable music, and I can listen to it all by myself. And, the whole world is covered in sound. It was like, Yeah, I remember my buddy.
I remember about the PX. All the Italians in Verona wanted skateboards, Zippo lighters, and Levi's. So I remember, on occasion, I'd go get a few Zippos or a few Levi's. And then I realized it was starting to get to be too many requests. And you weren't supposed to be doing this, of course. So I felt like I was somehow breaking some black market rule that I should not be doing on the bass. But I remember the Italians coming up to me, and I said, listen, we got boom boxes too, if you want, because there's tons of those. But the Italians, they wanted Levi's, Zippo lighters, and skateboards. Those are the three things that they couldn't.
Do they still tax the color TVs in Italy? You still have to pay a tax for the TV if it's color?
No. We're a little emancipated that way. We've gone no. That used to be. I think it was actually like a luxury tax because everybody had black and white TVs. So if you could buy a color TV, it means you were rich, and so you got taxed on it. That was the idea.
We gave one to our neighbors. It was like dun dun dun, like we were done with it. And they're like, wow, color television. The Spadoro's next door. So yeah, that was a big deal, and it's like, they probably didn't want to get it because oh my gosh, I'll have to pay tax on this thing. So they were more focused on the jeans, and some people wanted Peugeot bicycles. Definitely American cigarettes and gas coupons is what I heard. Some people were paying their rent and gas coupons. I knew a GI didn't have he didn't even have a car, and he was paying the $25 for 200 liters or whatever.
But he was going through 400 liters.
Yeah, 400 liters of rent per month. The landlord owned a gas station, so that was you're like $25 rent, and you're at E6. You're rocking over there, man. I mean, you can't get that anywhere.
It's amazing how much detail you remember from that time.
No, come on. I mean, give me my whole formative years. That's the programming. That's when the stuff's being put in the computer. So you've got this experiential thing. People come over to Italy, you give them the real experience. And that's what I was trying to get to before I slid off. That's different. Like if you come to the States from Italy and I take you to the best rock concert and you hang out with so-and-so and you go to the coolest skateboard park and the beach with the, most beautiful people and, the best music. And I take you to the coolest restaurants. You're going to go, America's awesome. Another guy, he lands down by the river and, geez, wow, it's more fun in Italy. At least we get soccer. At least we got this. I don't understand this American TV. You know what I mean? I mean, one thing that's changed now is you're taking your phone with you anywhere in the world. You got internet. So you're taking your world with you. I go to Europe. I have all the stuff I have from home. I'm not just, okay, SEB. That's one thing that's changed. That's one thing I wanted to do today. I did want to change my background. Let me do this while I'm here. I had to bring SEB back because I think it's gone, isn't it? Is SEB gone now, Rich?
There's something there. It's not called SEB. I was on base the other day and I took a picture of the front of the high school because now the entire school on base is high school. The elementary school and middle school is at the Villaggio now. Because with the Dalmolin construction, there are actually more Americans in Vicenza now than there were in our day.
Wow.
So the whole high school, both, and remember both doors, there was the right door and the left door.
Yeah.
That's all high
school. So that's all high school. So is there any better pricing on post? Did they still subsidize things, or is it, is it still like the PX and all that stuff? There's
still a PX commissary. They're rebuilding everything now, so they're building I think the commissary, now they're rebuilding the Shopette, which used to be, remember, it used to be 2 aisles of beer and cigarettes. Now it's, another department store. They sell everything. The PX is being remodeled now again. So, they're putting tons of money into this thing. The North 40 is literally a football field. Everything else is built up. The new hospital's on the North 40. So, I mean, you see the skeleton of what we knew, but it's a lot more developed. All the GIs, they used to sit, 6 to a room. Now everybody's got their own studio apartment, their own kitchen, their own TV, and it's a different world. It's a new world. But the base, when you walk in, your memories will come back right away. It's still got the same infrastructure, the same 5 o'clock, the flag goes up, you stop, you salute the flag. A lot of things that at the time I didn't understand, but now you've learned to appreciate. You sort of miss them.
Who have you run into? Who have you run into that were your classmates, like here and there, like at the time?
Well, again, I mean, the only guy, Dan, of course, we mentioned Monty Stokes. I've seen regularly over the past 8 we've taken some sailing trips together. Jim Cavoli, I mentioned. Jenny Diener, I ran into her by chance in Piazza di Signori Vicenza. She was the Johnny Coed, of course, because I also own a language school in Vicenza, although I don't spend much time there. And she was walking underneath my language school, and she heard me speaking, and we said hello, and she looks great. I know she comes back here regularly. I know a little bit about Debbie and Linda Katz through my sister. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out.
Well, no, it's like this for all of us,
We had a reunion in Vicenza, the only one I've ever been to, about 11 years ago now, maybe 12. And there I ran into a lot of people I hadn't seen. It was, anybody could go back to it, of course. There must have been, I think, maybe 150, 200 of us there. I didn't know everybody. I knew maybe 10, 12 people from my years. But it was fun to see this. You saw people that were in their 40s up into their 70s that came back for the reunion. And I thought, maybe you get enough energy going behind this, and it'd be nice maybe to schedule one back in Vicenza a couple of years from now when we can start flying again. And it'd be a fun event to put together.
That would be good with what you do, the real experience, because, what you talked about, the average American, the ice cream in Florence and that little circuit, that's what I would call the Fisherman's Wharf experience in California.
Exactly.
The Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco.
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's still here.
Yeah.
Then you go to Fisherman's Wharf in Monterey. Then you go to Fisherman's Wharf in LA somewhere. You go to Fisherman's Wharf in San Diego. It's like the mini Disneyland tourist traps. Hey, let's buy some overpriced canned soup and some bread for $30. You know what I mean? Like, no thanks. I want the real stuff. So you'd have to go to Napa to get the really good stuff, right? You're not going to get it at the wharf. So same thing with Italy, to get the real experience. Things have changed. Some parts are not safe. Some parts are safe. Some parts are more exciting. It's not stayed the same. I'm sure, like, where do you spend your time at Lake Garda a lot?
Well, I have a house at the lake, and I basically, when I have some time off, I like to sail. So I'm in Lake Garda, in the summertime. Of course, I live in the middle of Verona. With the programs, tours we bring over, we've pretty much specialized in the Veneto, in Piemonte in the wintertime. We go there because of their wines. The white truffle season is in November. So we have Americans that are fanatic about white truffle. We have 2 families from the Bay Area that are just off any measurement of reality. And they will come here every year for a week to go to white truffle season in Piedmont. And they'll eat white truffle for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And that's all they want to do. Obviously Tuscany. And the last years we've specialized in Sardinia a lot. Sardinia is the only part of Italy that maybe still has some wilderness to it, because if you go inland, it's all forest. But then you have the beautiful beaches. Of course, you have La Maddalena base, which is closed now. But you can go visit the old submarine gates where the Americans kept their can we say it? Their nuclear weapons.
Oh yeah, I did a podcast with a guy that was my boss in the Navy, but he was older, and he was stationed there. He loved it. He's like, oh, the life. He would talk so much about the Maddalena base and being over there, Sardinia. He really loved it. Marcus Dickey. I think he manages property there. He was one of the general's sons. He came later than you. He was younger than me, and I think he still lives there. But he used to run the golf courses and stuff there too. So that's a connection that you might not have thought of. And then I was also going to tell you about Alan Bruzzo, Cabruzzo Wineries. They're kind of near you. They're over halfway between Verona and Vicenza, or closer to Verona, actually. Yeah.
What's the name of the winery? Abruzzo?
Cabruzzo, I believe. I'll double
I'll
check.
look it up.
Yeah. What is your website?
No, but normally what's happened in the last couple of years is people will just contact us, I mean, we'll work with even a couple or small groups. Normally our groups tend to be, they'll come over 10 to 15 because they want to put together a special package of some sort. And, it's basically a customized tour. They tell us, look, we want to do one activity a day. We want 2 days off. We don't want to travel a lot. We prefer traveling by private bus. We prefer traveling by train, whatever it is they want to do. We'll do a consultation by the phone, and then some come over for the culture, some for the cooking, some for they just want to do wineries. We had one tour a couple of years ago from Chicago. It was golf and shop, and the guys went golfing at nine golf courses around Lake Garda, and the women went shopping all day. It was that generation, and we did it. We put it together, and they enjoyed it. But it's really about what it is you want to discover. It's almost like pathfinding tours. What is it you want to do? What is it you want to learn? What is it you want to are you here because you're doing research and you need a special place to go stay? Do you want to go stay in a monastery for 2 weeks and talk to the Bishop of Verona about San Zeno? I mean, they're all. The only thing we don't really do much with is people that want to just do the typical tour. The Florence, Rome, Venice tour. That because they can find plenty of packages to do that. And we're doing it the other way too now. We have Italians that we had a group. We took them to LA 2 years ago, and they wanted to do the beach thing, and they were they love Venice Beach for 2 days. We took them to, ironically, Vegas was their favorite stop because it was so out of the world for them. They couldn't fathom it. I remember when we drove in, we got there right at the right time when the sun was settling and the lights were on. And I mean, these were all in their 50s and 60s. They said, stop the car. They must have taken 4,000 photographs of Las Vegas before we got there with all the light systems and so forth. Because they're looking for what's, if you have an Italian in California, and you're going to take a mushroom hunter to wineries. They're to them, that's not what they're coming for. They want to do something Americana. You can take them to a barbecue fest and show them, what a Texas barbecue is like, and they're going to love that.
Wear a cowboy hat and let's go and play some country music. No, it's true, but you're talking about experiential. I mean, I had a thought about doing something like this a few years back because I realized that the whole world has gone too deep in tech. And I live in Silicon Valley. This is where they make all the stuff that, traps your mind. This is app world. This is IT world. This is .com world. All this stuff is coming out of here. For me, I was like, man, I'm just going to go rent a ranch and charge people $10,000 to go play basketball and play with a guitar. I'm kidding, but you get my point. Like, yeah, we're going to, base it on what I learned from the Boy Scouts or a teen club trip, just implement that. And to give people that experience, if I could convey how awesome it is what you do, that's really what people need to understand. It's experiential. If you take the surface tour, it does not stick. It's like another commercial, bloop, you don't remember it. But if you take the real deal and you have the real connection, and you go home with stories, you're not just on the tour bus, hop on, hop off, back in 20 minutes, hop on, hop off. That what you're offering is got even more value than it ever has, because the world has changed and they're looking for somebody who's skilled in that. And that's what I said, where our age comes in compared to the young podcaster trying to talk on something, but they don't have the life experience. You got to have that life experience, right? So
this is where what you do is so important, because you're able to, I mean, the fact that I'm, we decided we'll do a podcast at the last minute. I'm like, no, because I still have the idea, you got to prepare for this. You got to have a speech ready. You got to, but you also make it very, very easy. You obviously you have the narrative flow, and then somebody just has to pitch in on occasion, and you carry the show. You're the Sinatra of the show right now, and it should be that way, because you're able to make connections. It's almost like, it's a difference between method acting and spontaneous acting. And I mean, still in my companies with my Italian employees, they call me a dinosaur, because I'm like, no, let's go see him, let's go shake hands, let's go talk to them. They're saying, no, we can do this, just from the office and set it up. So I'm still battling with it, and I know I'm not saying something that I'm gonna get a pat in the back for. But in this time, especially with the COVID thing going on, I kind of was forced into seeing the value of this kind of exchange. And when you keep saying experiential, I mean, when you say it, in terms of a packaged product, you almost say, well, it's an adjective that they're pushing something. But it is that. I'm not going there because I want to be able to say, I saw 11 towns in 18 days. You're going there because you say, I did 3 things, but I learned how to do them well, and I learned what it is. You know, a cooking show, for example, and I'm sure I'm going to get some negative email about this, but a cooking show online, yes, you're going to learn the ingredients. But imagine going to a farm stay for 24 hours and you sleep there. And breakfast, lunch, and dinner are going to be prepared with the things you found on the territory. So you got to go out and pick the wild fennel. You got to pick the basil. If it's tomato season, you're going to make tomatoes. If it's zucchini, you're going to make, and everything you pick has to be used in your cooking experience. You do that once, you're going to learn that recipe for the rest of your life because it's the experience around it. It's the smell of the tree. It's the, you know, why does this wine taste differently from that one? Well, because there's a cherry tree growing there. And you go smell the cherry tree. You say, well, is the cherry tree really talking to the vineyard underground? Yeah, the roots are talking. They've been there for 100 years. You know, they're going to exchange flavors. And you can see them light up. You can see it saying, wow, you know, this is not a wine tasting in Napa. This is an experience in enological culture.
Yeah, it's not the fast food version. It's the true depth. You know, there's the fast food version like that, you know, the train, and you know, an itinerary. Nobody likes to really travel. Not nobody. There's some people, you know, that have that uncle. Okay, at 9 o'clock we will be at Disneyland. We will meet at the Ferris wheel. You're like, okay, dude, too much. I want to enjoy this. You know, it's like you can breathe in 3 minutes. Thanks, bud. But you know, I see. You have the diverse things. You get online school, you do the tourism thing. I think the podcast is great for a lot of people in Vicenza want to go back, or from Vicenza want to go back. They go, well, maybe I don't have an ID card to go on Post. Maybe, and you know, Post was cool, but it's not what it was. And Vicenza was cool, but it's not what it used to be. Things change. There's elements of Vicenza that are still the same, called Johnny Cohut. And, you know, the Flahertys live there, and a few other people, Generales, and there's a... And the Millers.
And through our connections, we're gonna get passes to go back on base anyway. So we can go do that, you know, the high school nostalgic trip.
Oh, you could do that, but even more so, I think what you're offering is like, hey, I'm gonna make it even cooler than when you were here because you're grown up, you appreciate it more, you're back, you're taking me to see some stuff. I didn't have a job, I had my summer hire money. There's no way I could go afford to play golf and eat with a chef cooking for me. This is worth it. This is a memorable vacation, because I think a lot of people are having trouble reproducing memorable vacations. They have generic, okay, booked a hotel, 3 rooms, you know, let's go down, eats, go room up, pay-per-view, circle. You know, I still travel, I still do stuff. So to me, I understand where you're coming from. I'm fresh off of, you know, the Azores and Seville and Portugal and all that stuff. You know, I just did that. And it was easy to adapt right back to it. And I tell all my friends, they're like, why are you so up on Spain? I go, I don't know. I thought when you know, my wife's like, let's go over there. And, you know, I'm reading about what do they like to eat? Jamon. They just like ham? I'm like, why do they just like ham? What's this crap? Ham. We're going to go eat ham. But there was a lot of other great food on the tapas. There's a lot of other great stuff on the menu. I don't know why I just thought, oh, no. Great. We're going to.
And the way the Spanish do jamon, I mean, to them, it's a religion. You know, they have a ibérico, they have the white paw pig, and these guys, they won't cheat a day on the aging process. It's an art form there. It's, prosciutto is good here, but that's one thing the Spaniards are number 1 in the world in. I mean, they're just another level.
Do you spend much time there? Do you ever go there to visit, or, you know, it's
oh yeah, I go to Spain almost every year. I love the vacation there. If I wasn't living in Italy and I was going to stay in Europe, Spain's the country I would go to. No question.
What part would you go to?
Well, I like Sevilla a lot. I've been to Sevilla a couple times now. Of course, I've been to Madrid 1,000 times, in Barcelona. But I'm, you know, at this point, I'm not looking for the big city thrill. I'm looking for and Sevilla's already a fairly big site. I would actually, when I think about, buying a small place, I know it's going to sound stereotypical, but Ibiza, if you avoid July and August, Ibiza is wonderful. Tenerife is fantastic. The Azores are fantastic. My cousin just moved to the Azores and opened a restaurant. He opened a chiranguito on the beach. He got tired of living here, and he went there, opened a chiranguito, worked 6 months a year, lives on the beach, and he has no intention of doing anything differently. Spain and Italy, of course, are very similar countries. That you can adapt well.
Latin culture, there's similarities, there's parallels, there's differences, but they're both great for what they have. You can appreciate them just as good. And that's what I was saying.
And
Like,
Portugal too now. Portugal's coming along fast, and it's fairly inexpensive compared to Italy and Spain. And Portugal's an up and coming country. I think those are three fantastic areas. We do tours all over Europe through WTS, and with my sister, we had one organized in Edinburgh this year. Of course, everything got canceled, of course. Then we had one organized at Cornwall, another great place. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like the Mediterranean summertime. I think Greece, Italy, Spain, and Portugal can feed a
yeah.
lifetime of Mediterranean experience.
Oh, for sure.
And if you like being on a boat, you can literally get a catamaran, and you can do Italy, Spain. Portugal's a little tougher, maybe Greece, maybe Sicily. You get 1 month, you're going to see all 4 of those countries and everything they have to offer coastline. Of course, economically, it's cheaper than in the States, because Americans are always thinking, well, this would cost this much in America. Here, it's going to cost considerably less.
Yeah. Look at Airbnb. It'll give you an indicator. I mean, I planned an itinerary for my friend traveling to Italy, old Italian buddy that lives here. And he's older, so he didn't know how to use the internet so much. So I go, okay. So I picked the coolest looking places. I started them in Padova, got the bullet train from the airport in Milan, boom. And then from Padova, he could go to Venice, but he could also hit up Padova and then take off and go down to Firenze. And I made him have the best, a place that's right on the water. It's like a 5-star place. And it's like, look at this compared to the States. You're only paying $150. This is like a $900 room, and then I put him by the Fountain of Trevi, you know what I mean? And then bounced him off to Spain, booked a cool place there, and then back to Sicily. And he said the only one that sucked was the place in Sicily, because they had no air conditioning. Like, here's a fan. And it was hotter than hell down there. It was summertime in Sicily. So here's a fan and some mosquitoes. We're going to throw them on you, You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But see, that's something that to put the Vicenza experience, I think that would be cool. And people don't realize that if done right, it is affordable. And what are you waiting for? A lot of people live this life of, I'm going to do it when. I'll be happy when I have my, it's like, okay, I'm in my 50s. Time's coming fast, man. What am I going to do? Wait until I'm 65? Oh, I'm retired now. Now I'm walking around like this. It's like, go now, live now, but don't waste your money. Put it towards something, because we're not going to take anything with us. It's the experiences that feed you. When I say things that trigger you in the past, you're like, yeah, right. And what has it been like also to bring back Frigo? He's a big exec. He's a big to-do, Disneyland and all that. But then you're just guys at the end of the day. You're just guys, because he needs a confidant. He needs a friend, because over in business, he's got all these business people. Oh, sir. Yeah, they want to get promoted, or they want whatever. I don't know these people personally, but this is just hypothetical and probably based on reality. You have a position of power and people want to climb. How is life?
We were talking about that.
Go ahead.
No, life's good. I mean, we were talking about, we talked for an hour before I connected with you. This pandemic is kind of, I think in our generation, the people that are in their mid 50s are thinking, well, do I really put 10 more years into it just to make a lot, more money to buy more stuff with, whatever I need. Right. And we're both playing with the idea that maybe it's time to just pull back a little bit, and maybe the size of the wallet isn't our focus, and giving quality time to, every generation has gone through this debate. I think now it's been a bit of an awakening, not so much, we could go any day because we know that anyway, but maybe just time to not worry about how many zeros are at the paycheck at the end of the month, but maybe say, what, with what I have, I can still live a very dignified life. And you can do well with less is kind of the point I'm trying to make. You don't need
I agree.
To have those. And
you get to that level and you're like, I was chasing, listen, I'll admit it. I was chasing that California dream, and I hit it at one point and I lost it at one point. So I know what it's like to hit. I wasn't any taller, faster, smarter, or better. I was just a guy with some money and some stuff. It comes and it goes. And it didn't make me, when you get to the high castle and you can afford the castle, but you get the mortgage on the castle, your apartment was $500 before you started. Now it's $18,000 a month. The pressure of owning all that stuff, it eats at you. You could be a big TV person, a producer, or a guy on a TV show or something, and you buy your house in Beverly Hills, but what happens when that pilot is gone? What happens when that ship is gone? I think it's better to plan a livable life, an experiential life, like what you give to people, because you can't take it with you. The only thing you're going to remember was you get older, like, oh, that was a great time. That's the richest. That's what the strong part of the podcast is. It takes you back now, and it's also a preview about what you might do after.
And existential is the reward, because then you meet these people and they land in Milan. You send the bus to pick them up. You meet them in the lobby of the hotel that night, and you got let's say we had 22 people from Hilton Head in last year for a month, and they land. I knew one guy. The other 21 people I didn't know. Half of them were miserable because they were on jet lag, and when you're on jet lag, any little thing's gonna set you off. I said, listen, guys, tonight we have a plate of pasta for you, a glass of wine. Go to bed. We'll see you tomorrow morning. We pick them up in the morning. We drive them to Lake Garda. We take them to a winery. We did La Verticale di Bollicina. It's called the Vertical of Bubbles. So we tried like 7 champagnes, sipping. Not to get
not chugging. I did that before.
Then from there, we took them to an olive oil plant. They got to try 3 or 4 different olive oils, but they saw the process. Then we took them to within 10 days, they went back saying, not because it's us. This is Italy. We just package a thing. But Italy's, someone could come and do it on their own. There's no problem there. We're the benefit that we know where we're going. We know what the treatment will be. But then the real benefit, the reward, is a year later, you get an email or you get a photograph on Facebook saying, do you remember this? And they'll write your paragraph. They'll write your page. The nostalgic ones will even send you a postcard, because that still exists. And then you make contacts, and you can see. And also for me, being an American, an Italo-American, when they come here, I see it through my American eyes, but I'm proposing Italy, and there's a bond that's created there where you say, this wasn't that bus tour, it wasn't that Colosseum, the Bridge of Sighs, the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, and you took pictures and you had your lousy pizza in the square, but it was so romantic.
The Instagram tour. The Instagram tour. Well, exactly. Well, you get the psychology. Think about it. How many times did we see Italian people, and I'm not trying to put them out of work, but an Italian person that had not been to the States, didn't really know the culture, learned English in some school online, not online, now today online, but back then in class. And they today I will show you this over here is the bridge. You'll like it. No, I'm just playing around. This sounds like Borat. But anyways, you like the pizza is good. I'm a Mario. You'll give me big tips, American peoples. No, but the thing is that they don't know. You could say, oh, you're from Chicago. Yeah, I've been there over by so-and-so by the lake. Yeah. All that rapport. And what it's like, what they're looking for. Psychologically, intellectually, emotionally what this person is looking for the experience. So you can transfer that experience to them better than somebody who, I'm going to be a tour guide. I went to Italy twice. I think I know it well. No, you lived it. I lived it. We can show it in a different light. You'll have that experience. It's a different when you're with the mayor of the town and he's showing you and opening all the golden gates, where you're just like there like a regular customer waiting in line with everybody else, and you're not having that experience. So I think that sounds like what you do.
What I notice with some of the groups that come back is we have some groups that have come back 15 years in a row. And the first year, this particular group from Chicago, they wanted to know what was for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, all 9 days of the tour. So, to the best of our ability, because we're in Italy, but we did it. And we said, from the second year on, they said, because they realized that they had their fixed menu and the product may have been frozen, may have come from a supermarket if they didn't have it fresh that day. And they realized that some of those who weren't sticking to the menu were eating the specials of the day or whatever the chef bought that morning at the market. So from the second year on out, they said, you know what, we learned our lesson. We don't want to know the menu. We want the chef to prepare whatever's fresh. You just tell them, I don't have any allergies or I have allergies. You tell them what you can eat and let the chef do his thing, instead of that control factor of, no.
What about being surprised? What about being surprised? What about the experience? Remember this. I'll give you a great analogy. So I went through one of my many divorces, I think around 40. And I've only been divorced only twice. But
it just seems like 43.
It just seems like 40 different ones. No, I went through that experience, and I remember going out to clubs. And sometimes you went to a party in Villaggio, Verona, whatever. You knew a few people are going to be there. or they might show up, or they might not show up. Maybe there's a girl or guy that you liked, and maybe they're going to be there. Maybe they're not, and maybe the other person they're interested in shows up with them, and you're like, "Oh, that's interesting. I've observed them. Nothing's happening here." I'm kidding, but you get my point. Is like my friend's looking at. I go, "Let's go out to a club. We're 40," and he's looking on Facebook. Oh, let's see how many people have checked in here. There's no mystery in that. There was always mystery in, let's see what's happening over here. We never had a guarantee. We were testing our intuition to see if we were going to have an amazing time, an average time, a crappy time. But even if it was a crappy situation that you showed up at the disco and it was empty and you were with 4 or 5 friends, you guys had fun. You did something that changed the night. And you were creative that way because you were always up in the game, always enhancing the experience. And, you know, a lot of that get taken away. And that's like by picking the food. If you're always picking your food, like I need to know my menu, what are you in a diet plan? Are you competing for Mr. and Mrs. Olympia? You know what I mean? So you want to be surprised. When's the last time you had a damn surprise that you didn't use analytics to track from the internet or whatever? So yeah, if you go and you get a chef like, what are we eating? I don't know. And that's the beautiful thing about Italy. You trusted them and they always made amazing food. You know, rarely was there something like, oh, I can't eat shellfish, you know, whatever.
And still today, I mean, I'll look at reviews of restaurants. I'd love to go. It's one of the few things I spend money on. And I love to go to, I'll look up Michelin restaurants and I'll look at, but in the end, when I go to a city I don't know, I'll end up asking a cab driver or some guy in a store saying, this is what I want to eat. And always send you the place that normally isn't even being reviewed. That's, some dive or some place off the street. But going back to that thing you're talking about, people that are obsessing, they're saying, how many stars does this have? And, how many people like this one? It reminds me of the theory of the pathological prude. I don't know if you've ever heard of this theory, but the pathological prude is won't make any plans the entire week, but on Friday will maybe commit to some kind of plan. But the entire night, wherever he is, he's not happy with the plate he has in front of him or the wine or the company has in front of him. And he's constantly online trying to find out what everybody else is doing. And the theory of the pathological prude is somewhere, someone's got to be having a better time than me. Let me find out where that is. Yeah. Basically, you're not present where you are. Let me go find out where life really is, because life is elsewhere.
True.
And no, life is the room you're in, and that's the room you got to live in and make the best of it.
No, it's true. I mean, I kind of had a little bit of that, guilty of that in Italy. Like they must be having more fun skateboarding in California. Not necessarily. No. They couldn't do it down Monteberico and you know what I mean? There was different things. I mean, we lived an hour from the beach, an hour from the mountains, basically, give or take a couple of minutes here and there, depending on how fast your parents drove. If were they law abiding or were they like true autostrada warriors? That's something that's changed. Is the speed limits on the autostrada? It's what, 140 now, top speed?
130, 85 miles an hour.
It's not bad, but they were checking you in and you were paying based on how fast you drove. It was like your racing ticket back in the day, the toll booths. That's what I remember. So when is your next, COVID's fucking a lot of this stuff up, excuse my language, people, but it's screwing up some of the tourism things. After 2021, Italy's having less cases. It's looking like you guys could reopen, but right now you're not really accepting anybody coming in, it looks like, too.
Well, within Europe, we have free travel. We're open to a number of countries, although they opened, we just closed down Bangladesh because they found 21 Bangladese that were positive in Rome. But contagions, especially here in the Veneto region, I think we've had 5 contagions in the last 28 days. I mean, it's basically mute, but we went through a severe lockdown here. You could not leave your house for 2 months. So at the moment I was angry, but I think that policy worked out in the end because apparently things are quite good. We're not expecting Americans to be able to come here or, Americans wanting to come here until probably towards the end of the year. But with World Tour Studio, our first tours are being scheduled for February and March 2021. We already have groups that have booked with us, and we got one in Piemonte. We got two groups coming to Verona in February. We got a group coming to Verona and Florence in March. So, we're quite busy with these. Again, it's all according to what happens to the pandemic and how it's dealt with. But, we're pretty optimistic that whether it's a vaccine or whether this thing dies out, we'll all be flying again by the end of the year.
What was it? Have you done any ski trips? I know a lot of people like to ski. They grew skiing there because I mentioned Class in the Snow with Lisa the other day. That might be a thing too.
I remember Class No, that was fun. Yeah, we do. We do a couple tours in the mountains. You know, normally it's not only about skiing. Some people want to go, you know, whether it's cross country skiing or skiing. Some people want to try air ballooning, or you know, they want to go hiking in the mountains. We actually have a tour called the Grappa Tour, and they'll go to a few distilleries and try different grappas that they make in the mountains. But again, you know, we have no prepackaged trip. It's about somebody, it's organizing the trip, reaching out to us saying, there's 9 of us, there's 12 of us, there's 6 of us, there's 20 of us, and this is what we want to do. You know, it takes a couple of weeks to go throw ideas back and forth, and then we put it in the tours we do with the mountain tours. We go to the Dolomites, we go to Val Gardena mostly. So it's Ortisei, Santa Cristina. It's about a 2-hour drive from here. And you're about 45 minutes from Austria, about an hour from France, an hour from Switzerland. So then, you know, people will also say, listen, we just want to come in, find us a hotel, but then we want to be free to go ski where we want. It all depends on what they want to do. We have more groups coming in for sailing trips now that we've discovered Sardinia. I did one last year with actually Charlene and Monty Stokes, and they came in from the States. There were 8 of us on board, and we flew to Sardinia, and we did a 7-day tour on a catamaran from Sardinia to Corsica. That was a lot of fun. We basically ate off what we fished in the ocean. We'd anchor, not even in port. We just ate free anchor. Some of the Americans, like my sister's husband Dave, he wasn't too excited about sea urchins or eel or things that we couldn't fish, but we always manage to have regular food in the fridge too. So yeah.
We get a pizza for you, buddy. No, it's not the kids' meal, chicken fingers. No, but I'm just saying, it's like that. Sardinia is something I like to check out. Yeah, definitely going to look you up when I come over there next time.
Well, Len, I mean, in the springtime, you know, if you're gonna take a trip to Spain, give me 3 days in Verona. Come in and come in for 3 days. I'll put you up in one of our agriturismi, and just just give me 3 days, no plans. Let me schedule 3 days for you, and then my guess is on the 4th day you're gonna want to buy an apartment here. But that's my guess.
I do that a lot. I travel all around the world, and I want to live here, and then some places didn't live up. Like I wanted to move to Arizona really bad. Nothing against Arizona. I liked Scottsdale. I go, this is great. It's affordable. I went there in the winter time. That's prime time. Go there in the summer when it's 120 degrees. Change your mind 100%, 360. Nothing changes so much. California, it's love-hate. It always has been. Italy was more love, less hate. It was fear of missing out. Now that I know that I'm not missing out, it's kind of like when you're younger and you're going to nightclubs 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 because you're afraid you're going to miss something. What if the love of my life is going to be there? What if all my friends have a good time and I don't go there? It's stupid, but it's kind of how you look back at how people think, right? So you and Dan are going to hook up. We're going to do a podcast together. Now, what did Dan do?
Fun.
His name's familiar. I always thought I thought he was related to Cleta or for some reason, you know, but they just had the same last name.
No, Dan moved back to Italy. I think it was in his sophomore year, but he moved to Liguria, actually, outside Sanremo, because his father was from Vicenza, but they had family in Sanremo. And then within a few months that he was there, he's from the Bay Area too. I was born in San Francisco. Dan was born there.
Oh, wow.
And then I guess they decided mid-year in his sophomore year they were going to move to Vicenza, because his father's originally from Vicenza, Ennio Frigo, who's a character himself. And they moved to Vicenza, and then Dan wasn't a military brat because he had nothing to do with the military, but his parents wanted him to finish high school in an American high school, so he came on board. Phenomenal soccer player, phenomenal athlete. Took the I like to think of myself as the soccer thing was my thing. When Dan came, I had to compete for dominance on the field. Very good player, very good athlete. Then we both graduated the same year. He went off to Berkeley, I went off to West Point, and then we sort of lost touch each other for 2 years. And then I went out to the University of Utah because I basically wanted to ski for a couple of years until I got serious about school. And Dan and I started meeting again. He and Charlene were also very good friends. And then we met in San Francisco. Then I would come back to teach at a university in Siena for an American program. And so he would stay at my place in New York because I was going to NYU for graduate work. And then we both found ourselves back in San Francisco. He was working for Christian Dior. I was working for Procter & Gamble. We literally lived 3 blocks from one another. It was just weird coincidences. And then we found each other a couple years later in LA. I was doing my PhD there. He was finishing his MBA. And I remember we meet on Friday mornings because that Friday was our movie day. And, we'd have all the newspaper clippings and we said, okay, we can check out this movie at 10:45 in the morning. We go to Century City 14. We got this one at 1 o'clock. We got this one at 3, this one at 5. We get on our motorcycles. We drive. We see 4 movies in a row. That was our Friday for a couple years. And then
helping him study for his future job. You're helping him prep, helping him prep for Disneyland. That's what you were doing.
Then he got a job with Disney, and I went and taught at the University of Southern California for about 4 years. I lived in Laguna Beach for a couple of years, and then I said I'm going to give Europe one last shot before I decide whether I'm going to stay in California or go back to New York. And came to Italy in 98, 99, and opened a language school. First year was tough. I didn't understand. They did business here. I couldn't understand the tax system.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then
it's not entrepreneurial friendly. Isn't it harder to do business in Italy because it's not so entrepreneurial friendly? It seemed like to me that tax is the system, right?
I say it now because I've come here and I've done okay. But I would have a hard time recommending somebody to come to Italy to open a business. It's bureaucratically a nightmare. It's administratively very, very pedantic. A lot of things which drive an American crazy because he doesn't see the logic in them. Mm-hmm. I still don't, and I've been here 21 years as a business guy. I literally have to send, if I get called in by any office for a permit or for a license or for an inspection, I have to send my accountant or my lawyer because if I go in, I still lose my the word shit. Yeah, I don't even get the question. I don't. Then the payoff is you live in Italy. It's an open air museum, so you kind of make the trade offs.
I like that open air museum. That's great. That's a great analogy. It's just cool to see all the people. It's cool to see a friendship through this whole thing, and it's funny that Derek set it off for you though. Watching the one of Derek. Lisa's a great podcast. So is Mike Walker. They'll bring different parts of your brain to this experience. And that's what they're like, when talking, wow, I thought of this, I thought of this, I thought it's like, it's opening up the brain because we're getting older. So what we're doing is we're deleting a lot of stuff in our hard drive, our experiential hard drive. What did you do? I watched Netflix. No, that's not my life. My life was living, right? And it's that we're all people that know what living life is about. And then we met other people that may not have come from our experience, our American friends that didn't know this. Maybe they were cool, progressive Californians, wild, exciting, fun people, but they still didn't have our experience. It's still a different thing being that dual culture experience that we had. So it's exciting. Now, I think a lot of people are going to
come. But Len, don't kid yourself, Len. I mean, I love Derek's conversation with you. I haven't seen the other podcast, but I will now. But you're the engineer behind this. You're the one that's making this possible. So I mean, in terms of building the infrastructure and getting the excitement and the nostalgia flowing, give yourself a pat in the back as you'd.
I'm a deep historian. I'm the deep librarian of Vicenza. I was there watching you grow up when I was a little kid, and then I went past you and I became the other person in the movie. It's like 8 is enough. First, you're the little tiny kid with the mop head, and then you're the big brother later on, right? You
make these connections very quickly, almost auspiciously. So, but,
well, it's easy because there was only so much resources to look back then. I mean, some of the funny things. I don't know why this has to make it on the podcast, but when we would go and we would get an American TV show, it was funny. Like the A-Team came to Italy, that one with Mr. T and all that. And they dubbed it over, but they made it rated R. It was a PG family-friendly movie. And you get like Mr. T, like, hey, asshole, instead of saying, hey, dumb. They made him more aggressive. And I thought that was hilarious. I don't know why that made it in the podcast, but do you get American TV?
But it did.
You get the internet.
Well, no.
Internet.
I mean, now it's with Sky TV, Apple TV, it's I get everything. I'm a huge football fan, so I have my NFL Game Pass, and so you get everything now. It's those are And I'm not sure that, it's obviously a positive factor, but the fact that we didn't have those things back then made you spend more time outside,
Yeah.
made you seek network elsewhere. You didn't sit at home as much. And
I remember going to the coffee shop or just having wine with a guy that you may not have normally put him on your super cool guy to hang out with list, and he still became very interesting. And you're hearing Mario's side of the story, and he works at the shoe store.
exactly.
Mario that works at the shoe store actually became interesting, because the way he talked and what he was saying, you're like, wow, I did not know that we all use our shoes to travel the world. I didn't think about that. Wow, his observation. It's like I was just wanting to hang out with Johnny, the cool soccer player, and Cindy, the pretty girl. But sometimes you'd find yourself with random people and be more of an open book in Italy to do something that you wouldn't do here. Like, oh no, I want to only order what I want to order. It's like the people with the 9-day meal pass. No, I need to know exactly what time. How many calories is in that dish, sir? Like we don't measure them. We're Italians.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a set agenda. You're open to the unfamiliar, and you welcome it in. You realize you can't control everything, so you're saying, well, let's see where this goes. And most of the time it goes in a good place.
Well, I think Johnny, we'll get Johnny on here eventually, and I'm sure you and Johnny are going to probably link up at some time. Looks like he's out boating. Looks like he's on Johnny 5000, Johnny Quest 5000. That's what I'm going to call him. He's gonna come on, everybody. He's the organizer.
He's a cheerleader. He's got an energy of a 10-year-old. He's again, he's reached out to me a number of times, and I hate to keep saying it's work, but I've decided to go on a slow down mode, and now these things are becoming important to me. So I hope I'm not too late to become part of the rebirth.
Oh, you're part of the rebirth. You're like the fourth podcast. There's like 300 people or more. And even, I found that Lisa shared it with her daughter. Her daughter was tripping out on it just to see who mom was back in school. She's like, oh, that's great. I like it.
That's got to be fun.
Well, I'm not,
But
good.
I'll reach out to Dan too, because I think he's flying to Chicago tomorrow. And then I'll reach out to him, and maybe maybe you do one-on-one with him, or we can do
for sure
a tag team. And
I like to do a one-on-ones because there's some people I don't know, and then I do a third one where we all have a cocktail hour on like all three people that were on the podcast. That's what I'm doing this weekend. Isn't that cool?
I'm in for all those cocktail hour sessions. Those are all good with me.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to open up to just a big crazy one, but I don't know what I can have 45 people on one of these things. By the way, people, I'm going to cut the podcast here, but I'm going to keep talking with you, Rich. So tune in for our next episode.